Breaking, in a twist nobody saw coming, Oprah Winfrey has just taken the stand, under oath and under pressure. What she revealed about her relationship with Diddy shocked even the most seasoned courtroom insiders. Whispers turned into gasps, and a silence fell across the room as she pointed fingers that could shake the industry to its core. This isn't just a celebrity trial. This is history unfolding in real time. The buzzing of early morning phones on Sunset Boulevard was louder than usual. Texts, alerts, and news banners exploded across every device with the same message: Oprah Winfrey subpoenaed in Diddy federal case.
It wasn't a rumor.
It wasn't speculation.
It was real, and it was seismic.
Within minutes, CNN and TMZ had confirmed the court filing. A single name, Oprah, was now entangled in the most high-profile legal firestorm in entertainment history. Federal prosecutors had filed the subpoena under seal days prior, but the confidentiality collapsed like tissue in a storm once the news broke. The sealed order was leaked, strategically or not, prompting a media frenzy outside the U.S. District Courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. Reporters shouted into microphones as helicopters hovered overhead.
Why Oprah?
What did she know?
Was she a witness or something more?
Her connection to Sean Diddy Combs had always been distant in public view, occasional award show interactions, a mutual nod of empire-building respect. But beneath the surface, whispers circulated in Hollywood's back corridors about past business deals, private island parties, and once-forgotten industry collaborations. Still, no one had expected this. Not even the most cynical gossip blogger. By mid-morning, TMZ dropped an exclusive, grainy photos of Oprah's legal team walking briskly into the federal courthouse. Identified among them was her longtime attorney, Patrice Bellamy, a woman known for taking no prisoners in high-stakes litigation. Clutched in her hand, a thick leather folder stamped with the Justice Department's crest. The message was clear: Oprah wasn't here as a bystander. She had something that federal prosecutors considered vital. Within hours, Diddy's defense team filed an emergency appeal, arguing the subpoena violated boundaries of relevance and risked tainting the jury pool. They cited Oprah's global influence, claiming her appearance would create a circus and bias public opinion beyond repair. The appeal barely made it past the courthouse printer before being struck down. In a sharp, 3-paragraph ruling, Judge Alicia Moreno denied the motion. The witness in question, she wrote, has knowledge directly related to the timeline under investigation. Her testimony is not only admissible but essential. The words hit the legal world like a dropped anvil. Oprah Winfrey wasn't just involved, she was pivotal.
Speculation flooded every media outlet.
Anchors on MSNBC tried to keep it composed, but the tremor in their voices gave them away. Fox News speculated that this was a deep state distraction.
Twitter, however, was on fire.
Memes, hashtags, reaction videos, it was chaos. And yet, amid the hysteria, Oprah herself was silent.
Not a word on her Twitter. No press release.
No statement through her network, OWN. Her team remained radio silent except for a short, clipped email from her publicist. Ms. Winfrey will comply with all legal obligations.
No more, no less.
Inside the court building, reporters scrambled for leaks. One clerk, anonymously quoted by Variety, said the courtroom was being prepared for heavy security and limited press access. The judge had ordered camera restrictions, knowing that the mere presence of Oprah could turn a federal trial into a media coliseum. Outside, barricades were set up as protesters and fans alike began gathering. Some held signs calling for justice, others simply wanted a glimpse of the media queen herself. Helicopters circled like vultures. It felt less like a courtroom and more like the red carpet at the Oscars, except everyone was dressed for a scandal, not a celebration. In a tense press conference that evening, Diddy's lead attorney, Marcus Kendrick, spoke outside the courthouse. We remain confident in our defense. We caution the public against conflating celebrity status with credibility. We will vigorously challenge any unsubstantiated claims. The message was clear: they were ready to fight Oprah if they had to. That night, late shows scrambled to rewrite their scripts. Jimmy Kimmel opened with, "When Oprah shows up with legal documents, you either surrender or confess everything you've ever done wrong." It was a joke, sure, but no one was really laughing. Meanwhile, inside closed-door legal meetings, Oprah and her team reviewed documents, revisited past emails, and consulted digital forensics experts. The federal prosecutors had made it clear they weren't interested in fluff. They had a timeline, and they believed Oprah had knowledge that could confirm or destroy major parts of the case.
The timeline in question?
A series of events from 2011 to 2018 involving off-the-grid business transactions, private parties at undisclosed locations, and a growing list of alleged victims whose accounts were disturbingly similar. But no one had been able to verify certain key details.
That's where Oprah came in.
She was, according to internal sources, present during at least 2 major off-record gatherings. Her name appeared, albeit discreetly, in email threads, travel manifests, and security clearance lists obtained during a sealed discovery phase. But what exactly she witnessed, or was told, remained unknown. Was she a witness? A participant?
A protector? Or just someone who got too close to the flame?
The court was scheduled to reopen the following Monday. The world now waited, not for evidence, not for the defense, but for Oprah. What she would say, what she had seen, and whether she would, in fact, speak at all. Hollywood had seen scandals. It had seen trials, exposes, and dramatic exits. But never this. Never Oprah. And that was what made it different.
That was what made it dangerous. That was what made it historic. The morning of Oprah's testimony began in eerie silence.
For a city known for its chaos, Hollywood had gone still, anxiously watching, waiting. Reporters had been camped outside the federal courthouse since before dawn, bundled in windbreakers and gripping coffee cups like lifelines. Despite the early hour, the sidewalk was already packed, news vans lined the street, metal barricades divided crowds, and lapped officers stood shoulder to shoulder in anticipation of something monumental. At 8:42 a.m., a black SUV convoy pulled up to the south entrance of the courthouse. The lead vehicle slowed as security stepped forward.
A few seconds passed. And then the rear door opened. Out stepped Oprah.
She was dressed in solid black from head to toe, a fitted coat, long skirt, low heels, and oversized sunglasses.
Her expression was unreadable. She neither waved to the cameras nor acknowledged the crowd. Her presence alone was enough to command silence.
Even the protesters, who had spent the past 2 hours shouting slogans and waving signs, fell quiet.
A few murmurs rippled through the line.
One woman whispered, "She actually came." Flanked by 3 federal marshals and 2 members of her personal security team, Oprah walked briskly toward the entrance. Her longtime attorney, Patrice Bellamy, matched her stride, holding a thick binder close to her chest. The only sound was the clicking of camera shutters and the low whir of drones above. Inside the building, court staff were already operating on high alert. The judge had ordered strict courtroom decorum: no phones, no recordings, no access beyond approved press and legal counsel. Even sketch artists were required to sit behind a double barrier. Everyone understood the stakes. Though her arrival had been kept under wraps, the timing had been predicted by journalists with the precision of seasoned gamblers. Within minutes, the hashtags were trending globally.
#Oprah Testifies. #Diddy Trial. #Justice Watch.
#Blackout Day in Hollywood. CNN cut away from international coverage to go live outside the courthouse. MSNBC had an anchor posted at the scene. Even ESPN briefly referenced the case, noting how celebrities across all industries were watching closely.
And on Twitter,
celebrities, influencers, and even verified burner accounts began reacting in real time.
Inside the courtroom, the temperature was cool but the energy was suffocating.
Oprah sat at the witness stand with a posture so composed it bordered on regal.
She did not fidget. She did not smile.
She simply waited as Judge Alicia Moreno reviewed the day's docket aloud. To the casual observer, it might have looked like a formality, but to those in the room, every second stretched like glass about to shatter. As per protocol, the prosecution began with a formal statement. Your Honor, the witness will speak to a sequence of events and private communications that intersect materially with the defendant's known movements, business activities, and ongoing investigation from 2011 through 2018. Diddy's team immediately objected. Marcus Kendrick stood up, tone sharp. We maintain that this witness's influence on public opinion renders any testimony inherently prejudicial. Overruled, Judge Moreno said coolly. Proceed. As the courtroom braced for the beginning of her questioning, sketch artists' pencils moved like lightning. Though cameras were banned, their drawings would define the day for the public. One sketch would later go viral. Oprah seated in the witness box, head turned slightly, a sliver of light catching her cheekbone, and the words "I'm ready" reportedly just leaving her lips. But before she uttered a word, there was one more surprise. Just as the prosecutor approached the bench, a second convoy arrived outside. Protesters began shouting again, not against Oprah, but against the system. Placards reading "Unseal the files," We believe the survivors, and no more billionaire silence waved in the air.
It wasn't just about Diddy anymore.
This had grown into something larger, an indictment of the elite, of silence, of complicity. Inside, the courtroom remained insulated from the noise, but not from the gravity. Oprah glanced briefly toward the gallery before fixing her gaze forward again. Her first words were simple.
Clear. Calm.
My name is Oprah Winfrey, and I have been asked to provide testimony related to my associations with Mr. Combs over a period of several years.
She paused. The court reporter tapped the keys. The silence returned.
I understand the weight of what I'm about to share, she continued, and I am here today not because I wanted to be, but because I was compelled by duty.
In that moment, the court became a vacuum. Reporters scribbled notes they knew would be redacted. Legal aides stared wide-eyed.
Even Judge Marino seemed to sit a little straighter. For the next 3 hours, Oprah would speak sparingly, measured in her words, meticulous in detail.
But that came later.
For now, in these opening minutes, she had made her presence known. Not just physically, but symbolically. Her silence had ended. Her truth, whatever it may be, was beginning to unfold. As the judge called for a short recess, the courtroom was instructed to remain seated until the witness had exited.
Oprah stood, nodded, and was escorted out just as silently as she had entered.
Back outside, the media swarm resumed, this time louder, more frantic. Helicopter footage captured the top-down view of her SUV vanishing into the Los Angeles traffic, escorted by 2 police vehicles. Live feeds across news networks looped her entrance on repeat, dissecting every second like it was a State of the Union address. By noon, headlines across the globe had one name in bold print, Oprah. And one question on everyone's lips. What is she about to reveal? By the time court reconvened after the brief recess, a new air had settled in the room, tense, heavy, anticipatory. The world outside was spinning with theories, but inside this quiet courtroom, Oprah Winfrey was about to speak under oath. Not in front of a camera, not from a red carpet, not on her talk show. Here, the Queen of Media was just another citizen under subpoena. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Renata Caldwell, approached the bench with composure. She glanced at her notes, then at Oprah. Ms. Winfrey, we'd like to begin with the nature of your relationship with Mr. Combs. How long have you known him? Oprah's voice was soft, but it carried. I first met Mr. Combs in 1998, during an event hosted by Clive Davis in New York City. At that time, he was already rising fast in the music world. We exchanged pleasantries. That was the beginning.
Caldwell nodded.
Would you describe your relationship over the years as casual, or closer than the public was led to believe?
There was a pause. Oprah didn't blink.
Over the years, we became professionally acquainted. But we also shared mutual friends, attended private functions together, and at one point, discussed the possibility of joint ventures.
The courtroom stirred.
What kind of ventures?
Media-related. He had ambitions beyond music. He wanted to enter publishing.
He pitched me a concept for a lifestyle magazine targeted at Black millennials. It was polished, but I declined. The prosecution produced a binder and handed it to the court reporter, who marked it as Exhibit 14A. It was a pitch deck, glossy pages, bold headlines, and Diddy's name at the bottom. Oprah x Sean, Black Legacy Media.
The crowd murmured. Even the judge raised an eyebrow.
Did you ever invest in any project with Mr. Combs?
Caldwell asked.
No, Oprah said clearly. But I did attend several closed-door meetings, dinners, and retreats where Mr. Combs was present. Some were professionally driven. Others were more personal. Can you clarify?
Oprah took a deep breath.
She looked down at her notes, then locked eyes with the prosecutor. There was a weekend in 2011. A private gathering in St. Barths.
It was hosted by a mutual friend.
There were celebrities, artists, and business moguls in attendance. On the surface, it appeared normal: drinks, music, networking.
She hesitated.
But something about that weekend shifted my perception of him.
The courtroom held its breath.
What happened? There was a night where the energy changed, Oprah said, her voice growing quiet. A group of younger guests, some of whom I later learned were underage, arrived late, escorted by individuals I didn't recognize.
The music got louder.
The tone of the conversations grew darker. I felt off, unsettled.
A beat passed.
I left the island the next morning without speaking to anyone. I didn't attend the final brunch. I've never returned to a Diddy-hosted event since.
Gasps escaped from the gallery. The judge gave a sharp look that silenced the crowd.
Did you ever raise concerns about what you witnessed?
Caldwell asked. Only to one person, Oprah replied.
Gayle King.
I told her I had an instinct something was wrong.
But without proof, I kept it to myself. Until now.
Caldwell stepped back.
Ms. Winfrey, may I direct your attention to Exhibit 18C? The courtroom watched as the court officer handed Oprah a printed set of emails. The pages were marked with dates ranging from June 2011 to March 2012. All between herself, Diddy, and an encrypted account belonging to someone known only as Jack Smaven at Tata.io.
Do you recognize these? Oprah nodded.
Yes. These are from the brief period when we considered collaborating on a digital platform. Can you read the highlighted section dated October 18, 2011?
Oprah adjusted her glasses and read aloud. Oh, we should talk soon. Things are moving.
Can't put everything in writing, but the network is expanding. Real power doesn't live in studios anymore, it lives in who has the footage.
Another gasp. The prosecution let it hang in the air.
Do you know what he meant by footage?
No.
But at the time, I assumed it referred to media content for the project.
In hindsight,
I'm not sure. Do you believe Mr. Combs was involved in something illegal at that time?
Objection.
Diddy's defense team, led by Kendrick, jumped to their feet. Calls for speculation.
Judge Moreno didn't hesitate.
Sustained. Rephrase.
Caldwell nodded.
Do you believe now that what you witnessed in these communications are relevant to the federal investigation?
Yes, Oprah answered.
Have you ever been pressured by Mr. Combs or anyone in his circle to stay silent?
A noticeable pause. Not directly.
But I've received anonymous messages over the years, threatening tone, vague references to unfinished business. At one point in 2016, a driver followed me from my production studio to my home. Security footage confirmed it, but no license plate was visible. The prosecutor looked grave. Did you report it?
Yes.
To private security, and later, to the LAPT. But the case went nowhere.
The courtroom was stone still. The spell of Oprah's testimony was absolute. No one shifted. No one coughed.
Even Diddy sat frozen, his hands clenched, his gaze unbroken. Caldwell ended the segment with one final question. Ms. Winfrey, are you afraid of what might happen now that you've testified?
Another pause.
Oprah's eyes, once tired, now sparkled with defiance.
No, I'm not afraid anymore.
And with that, the prosecution rested, at least for the day. Judge Moreno called for a break, and the room erupted as soon as Oprah stepped down from the stand. Reporters sprinted from the courtroom, shoving handwritten notes and audio memos into their bags.
Phones lit up as soon as they were turned back on.
Across the globe, live coverage resumed. Breaking, Oprah testifies she witnessed disturbing events involving Diddy. By the end of the day, Oprah's name was no longer just trending.
It was a lightning rod. She had shattered the silence. And the world was listening.
By now, the courtroom was less a room and more a pressure chamber. Every word Oprah uttered sent ripples through the press, and every silence she allowed was filled with speculation online. The gravity of her presence had shifted the tone of the entire case. No longer just a criminal trial, it was morphing into a cultural reckoning. And now, the prosecution was about to peel back the lid on one of the most whispered-about episodes in celebrity circles, the 2015 Hamptons party. Ms. Winfrey, Prosecutor Caldwell began, her voice crisp with control, would like to revisit an event that occurred in August of 2015. A private gathering in the Hamptons. Do you recall attending?
Oprah didn't hesitate. Yes.
I do. What was the nature of this event? It was marketed as a wellness retreat, Oprah explained. A curated weekend for celebrities and business leaders to disconnect, meditate, and share ideas. I was told there would be panels, sound baths, and networking dinners. On paper, it was harmless. Who was the host?
Sean Combs, though he didn't appear until the second day.
Caldwell gestured to the court reporter to mark a new exhibit. A printed invitation, styled like a luxury hotel brochure, was projected on a screen before the jury. It read, "Awaken, a conscious experience at Harborlight Estate, hosted by SC." The guest list, although not visible in its entirety, included high-profile initials that had the gallery whispering. Did anything seem unusual upon your arrival?
Oprah nodded. The energy was curated, almost too perfect. There were no cell phones allowed. Everyone had to place their devices into locked pouches upon entering the property. Security was tight, but not the kind you'd expect for safety. It felt more like containment.
Did you encounter Mr. Combs during the event?
Yes, she said, her voice steady. On the second evening, he arrived by helicopter. That night, the atmosphere shifted.
Guests who hadn't been present before suddenly appeared. There were whispers of private performances, underground lounges, areas of the house that were off-limits. Did you witness anything inappropriate directly?
Oprah paused.
I didn't enter the off-limits areas, she began, but I did overhear a conversation between two guests, names I won't repeat here, discussing how new girls had arrived. One said, they are prepped and NDA'd. The other laughed and said, just like last time. I remember the phrase vividly.
Murmurs erupted. Judge Moreno immediately raised her hand. Silence in the court, she ordered.
Proceed. Did you stay for the remainder of the event?
Caldwell asked. No. I left around 2 a.m. that night. I told my assistant to pack my things. I didn't wait for the morning transport.
I arranged a private car and left.
Why? Oprah's eyes locked onto Caldwell's.
Because it stopped feeling like a retreat.
It started to feel like a cover. Caldwell walked slowly to the desk and retrieved another document.
Ms. Winfrey, do you recognize this journal entry?
Yes. That's my handwriting.
Please read the first few lines for the court.
Oprah held the page, steady hands betraying the weight of the words.
August 9, 2015.
I feel nauseous. Not because of something I ate, but because of something I heard. It's as if the walls have mouths, and the truth is trying to escape but can't. I don't know who these girls are, but I can't hear what I heard. The courtroom was still.
That journal was written the morning after you left the Hamptons estate.
Caldwell clarified.
Yes. And you've kept it all these years?
I have.
It's part of a practice I've maintained for decades, documenting my inner state after significant emotional shifts. That night caused one. Diddy's legal team, clearly agitated, finally interrupted. Your Honor, Kendrick snapped. We object to the admissibility of a personal diary as evidence. It is inherently subjective, lacks corroboration, and was not disclosed in a timely manner.
Caldwell turned, unflinching.
The defense was made aware of the journal during discovery. This excerpt specifically is being used to establish emotional context and timeline.
Judge Moreno reviewed the objection briefly, then nodded. Objection overruled. Continue. Caldwell nodded respectfully.
Ms. Winfrey, you mentioned earlier a woman approached you after that weekend.
Yes. About a week later, I was at a private screening in New York. A young woman I didn't know introduced herself during the reception. She said, "You were at the Hamptons. I saw you." I nodded. She looked me in the eye and whispered, "You left." Smart.
Then she walked away.
Did you follow up? I tried. I contacted the event organizer. No one would give me her name.
The guest list had already been scrubbed from the internal app we'd used. Did you report this to anyone?
I mentioned it to my inner circle. My legal team advised that without a name or direct accusation, pursuing it further might prove damaging, to my career and to hers. So I held on to it.
Until now.
The judge called for a recess. The room exhaled. Outside, news had already spread. Screens across Times Square flashed headlines. Oprah drops bombshell on 2015 Diddy event. IT started to feel like a cover. Winfrey's shocking court entry. Sealed journal suggests girls were NDA'd at celebrity retreat. Twitter was ablaze. Anonymous sources from that weekend began to post cryptic tweets. One verified user who had been linked to a similar event years ago tweeted, "She's telling the truth. I was there. I'll speak when it's safe." And still, Oprah said nothing outside of court. Her legal team issued no press statement. Her network remained silent. But the effect was seismic. Multiple podcasts went live within the hour. Reddit threads exploded with theories.
YouTube creators uploaded breakdowns with thumbnails of Oprah's face against red backgrounds and bold headlines screaming exposure.
For years, the 2015 Hamptons event had existed only as a rumor, One of those stories whispered in green rooms and at after-parties. But now, under oath, Oprah had etched it into the public record. She hadn't made accusations. She hadn't claimed direct witness to a crime. She had done something far more dangerous. She had pointed to the shadows and said, "Look there. There's something you've all been pretending not to see." And the world had no choice but to look. The fifth day of testimony was already being called the trial's day of reckoning by the media before it even began. Rumors had circulated through every outlet, cable news, Twitter, encrypted Discord chats, that the prosecution had obtained a previously undisclosed piece of evidence. Something audio-based. Something that would shift the center of gravity, as one CNN legal analyst put it. At 9 a.m. sharp, the courtroom was packed. Spectators had queued from dawn, hoping for a seat inside. Even a handful of celebrities, under the guise of anonymity, had quietly taken places in the back rows. Everyone was there for one reason, to hear the clip. Oprah entered the courtroom the same way she had all week, composed, silent, unreadable. Diddy sat across from her at the defense table, face stony and still. He hadn't addressed the media in days. His lawyers were visibly tense, whispering furiously between themselves. Judge Marino opened proceedings with a single warning. There will be no outbursts, no interruptions, and no recordings. The material being presented today is considered sensitive and highly consequential to this case. Prosecutor Renata Caldwell stood and approached the bench. In her hand was a small silver USB drive. "Your Honor," she said, "the prosecution seeks to enter into evidence a recorded conversation dated March 22, 2016. The audio has been verified through forensic audio analysis and metadata tracing. The court has received transcripts, but we believe hearing the recording itself is essential." The judge gave a nod. "Proceed." Caldwell inserted the USB into the court's audio system. A moment later, the sound system crackled to life. There was a moment of hiss, background interference, then a woman's voice came through. Calm. Measured. It was unmistakably Oprah. "Sean," the voice said, "you can't keep doing this. You're dragging too many people into something that's going to explode." There was a pause. Then a second voice answered. "I told you, there are rules for them, and there are rules for us." The voice was lower, aggressive, but controlled. Every person in the room instantly recognized it as Diddy's. The clip continued. "Oprah, they are scared. The girls are scared, Sean. Diddy, they signed what they signed. And if they didn't, they knew what they were walking into." A collective gasp went through the room. "Oprah, in the recording, what if one of them talks?" "Diddy, then I bury it. Like I always do." Dead silence. In the back, someone dropped a pen. It clattered loudly across the floor. The judge didn't pause the audio. She let it play. "Diddy, you think you know how deep it goes. You don't. I'm the infrastructure now. The shows, the deals, the hosts, the banks, I'm everywhere. So don't threaten me again." "Oprah, I'm not threatening you. I'm warning you." Then the recording ended. No dramatic fade out. No music. Just silence. For a moment, no one moved. The courtroom had turned into a vacuum, still, breathless. Then came the chaos. Gasps, whispers, even a few open sobs from the gallery. Judge Marino banged her gavel hard. "Order. I will clear this courtroom if necessary." Prosecutor Caldwell turned to face the stunned jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, that was not speculation. That was not hearsay. That was Mr. Combs in his own voice, in his own words, referencing actions and attitudes that speak directly to the heart of this case." Diddy's lead counsel, Marcus Kendrick, stood up furiously. "Your Honor, we move to exclude this audio on the basis of unlawful recording and entrapment." "You may file that motion after the session," Judge Marino cut in sharply. "For now, it stays." Oprah sat silently. She didn't flinch. Her eyes were trained on a fixed point in the wall ahead of her, as if she were no longer present in the room. But her body told another story, still, braced, resolute. Caldwell continued. "Ms. Winfrey, do you confirm that it is your voice in that recording?" "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And did you consent to the conversation being recorded?" "No. But I was advised by a private investigator I had hired to monitor my safety to document all direct conversations with Mr. Combs following the 2015 incident. Was this recording turned over to the authorities before today?"
It was submitted during pre-trial discovery under protective seal. It was only cleared for public use this morning.
Caldwell turned to the judge.
We ask that the jury be instructed to consider this clip not only as evidence of tone and intent, but as an indicator of pattern. The judge nodded. The jury will weigh this recording as part of the broader evidence provided.
Outside the courthouse, the fallout was instant.
Live broadcasts interrupted regular programming to play back the courtroom sketches and leaked transcripts. Legal analysts called it the nail in the narrative. Twitter trended globally with #TheAudio, #DiddyBuriedIt, and #Oprah was right. On YouTube, clips of the courtroom reaction racked up millions of views within hours. News sites published side-by-side comparisons of Diddy's past interviews with excerpts from the recording.
Public opinion began to coalesce and shift.
Even former supporters, industry figures who had been quiet for weeks, began to back away. Back in court, Kendrick began preparing for damage control. During a sidebar, he insisted the clip was cherry-picked, claiming there were longer segments that offered context. The judge allowed him to submit the full unedited recording under seal but declined to delay proceedings.
That night, Oprah remained silent. She gave no interviews, released no statements.
But her network, OWN, broke its silence with a cryptic message posted to social media.
Power protects power, but the truth protects everyone else.
We stand with her.
The post received 7 million likes in under 6 hours.
Meanwhile, a previously dormant witness from the 2015 retreat contacted the FBI through a third-party attorney, requesting protection before going public.
The trial wasn't over, but something fundamental had changed.
Diddy's confidence had cracked. The silence from other high-profile figures was beginning to crumble.
More subpoenas were expected, and whispers of a federal task force forming around the case began to surface. But at the center of it all was a single voice.
One woman, calmly recorded in a moment of private warning that now echoed like a thunderclap. I'm not threatening you.
I'm warning you. And now, the world had heard her.
When the courtroom reconvened the next day, a new kind of tension filled the air, darker, meaner. If yesterday's audio clip had set fire to the narrative, today would determine whether Oprah could withstand the flames. The defense had been quiet overnight, but everyone knew what was coming: cross-examination. Diddy's attorney, Marcus Kendrick, rose with the look of a man holding a scalpel. He adjusted his tie slowly, turned to Oprah, and said, "Ms. Winfrey, you've built a career on storytelling. Some say you're the greatest narrator of our time. Would you agree with that characterization?"
Oprah's eyes met his.
"I've built a career on telling the truth." "And truth," Kendrick said, "can often be shaped, yes?
By emotion?
By perspective? Especially when there's no direct evidence, only feelings, journal entries, and private conversations." Objection from the prosecution. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Moreno said. "Mr. Kendrick, rephrase."
He nodded. "Let me be clearer.
Ms. Winfrey, are you aware of the impact your words have on public perception?"
"I'm aware people listen when I speak," she replied evenly.
"Would you agree that your presence here, and the release of that audio recording, has dramatically affected public opinion, even before this case is concluded?" "I would agree it's brought attention to the facts," Oprah said. "Which is the point of a trial?" Kendrick circled slowly toward the witness box. "Let's talk about facts, then. In that 2016 recording, you expressed concern about Mr. Combs' actions. And yet, you didn't go to law enforcement. You didn't file a report. You didn't alert the press. You stayed silent. Why?" "I submitted that recording under seal to the Department of Justice when I was subpoenaed last year," Oprah answered.
"But for years, you said nothing."
"Not even to the women you now say were scared," Kendrick pushed. "How do you reconcile that silence with your image as an advocate for victims?" A hush swept through the gallery. Oprah paused, then answered, "Silence doesn't equal complicity.
At the time, I didn't have proof. Just suspicions.
And the people around me urged caution, for my safety, and for theirs.
I carry guilt for that. But I'm here now.
And I'm telling the truth under oath."
Kendrick wasn't finished.
"You've referred to Mr. Combs as manipulative, intimidating, and dangerous in court. Yet, in 2014, you praised him publicly at the Icon Awards, calling him a cultural trailblazer and a partner in legacy building. That's quite the shift, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," Oprah replied, her voice cooler now. "That speech was written with the information I had then.
Before St. Barth's. Before the Hamptons. Before the call. He raised an eyebrow.
So you changed your view retroactively, once it was safe to do so?
I changed my view when the evidence became undeniable, she said. Murmurs again. Judge Moreno slammed her gavel.
One more interruption and I will clear the gallery.
Kendrick pivoted.
Ms. Winfrey, let's talk about your network, OWN. Following your testimony, your channel released a statement. Was that coordinated with you?
No.
I didn't author that message. But it bears your voice.
Your team. Your brand.
Doesn't that compromise your neutrality as a witness? Doesn't that create the appearance of leveraging this trial for public sympathy or profit? Oprah bristled but remained composed. If you think I need this trial for profit, you've clearly never looked at my balance sheet.
Laughter bubbled from the gallery. The judge glared. Order.
Kendrick's face reddened, but he regrouped. He reached for a folder and held up a printed image, a still from a 2017 private party at the Soho House in Malibu. In the photo, Oprah and Diddy side by side, smiling, glasses raised. Here you are with Mr. Combs, 2 years after the 2015 Hamptons event. Looks friendly, no?
That was a public fundraiser, Oprah replied. He approached me for a photo.
I obliged, as I've done with thousands of people. Thousands? And yet you remember this one. I remember the discomfort. I remember excusing myself 5 minutes later. Convenient memory, Kendrick snapped. Consistent memory, Oprah corrected. Kendrick turned again to the jury, this time with a darker tone. Members of the jury, ask yourselves, does this testimony align with a woman who was afraid for her safety? Or does it sound like someone protecting a brand, hedging her bets, and stepping forward only when the tides turned? Before the prosecution could object, Oprah leaned forward. May I respond, Your Honor? The judge nodded. Oprah looked directly at Kendrick. You're not wrong about one thing, I do understand power.
I understand how it shields people. How it isolates victims.
And I understand how fear, real, deep fear, can make even the loudest voices go silent. But don't confuse my restraint with weakness.
I came here because I was asked to tell the truth.
And I will, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you. The room fell still again. Even Kendrick didn't speak for a moment. Then, slowly, he closed his file. No further questions. As he sat, there was a visible shift in Diddy's demeanor. For the first time since the trial began, he looked shaken, eyes darting, jaw clenched, foot tapping beneath the defense table. Judge Moreno called a short recess. Outside, reporters scrambled to report what had just happened. The moment Oprah stared down her cross-examiner went viral instantly. TikTok edits with swelling music. Twitter threads calling it the takedown of the decade. Hashtags like #Oprah owns courtroom and #cross-exam clapback lit up the internet. By the time court resumed, even formerly neutral media outlets were shifting tone. Panelists on morning shows debated not whether Oprah was telling the truth, but why she hadn't spoken sooner, and who else might now follow her lead. Inside the courtroom, she returned to her seat, calm, firm, grounded. And in that moment, one thing was clear. Oprah wasn't just surviving cross-examination. She was controlling the room. By the time Oprah stepped out of the courtroom that Friday afternoon, the world outside had already changed. News choppers traced the outline of her SUV as it pulled away from the courthouse. Pedestrians in downtown LA stood frozen, phones in the air, hoping to capture a glimpse of the woman whose testimony had redefined the trial, and, perhaps, the entire entertainment industry. For 5 days, she had taken the stand. For 5 days, she hadn't flinched. Now, the public was flinching for her. As her vehicle disappeared into traffic, social media platforms went into overdrive. Twitter was a battlefield of opinion, reaction, and revelation. The top trending hashtag, #Oprah Testifies, followed closely by #DiddyTrial, #SheSpoke, and #Truth Has a Name. Then came the statement. At 3:17 p.m., Oprah's OWN network broke its silence again. This time, it wasn't cryptic. It was chillingly direct. We support our founder, Oprah Winfrey, for standing up and speaking the truth in the face of fear, power, and silence. The truth is never quiet. Neither are we. Attached was a photo of Oprah on the stand, sketched by an anonymous courtroom artist, her hand raised mid-oath. The post received over 10 million likes on Instagram within 3 hours. Within minutes of OWN's statement, the dominoes began to fall. Rihanna, who had once collaborated with Diddy on fashion ventures, posted a black square with white text. "Protect the women who warned us. I hear you, oh."
She disabled comments.
Tyler Perry, one of Oprah's closest collaborators, took a bolder approach. In a now viral video message uploaded to X, formerly Twitter, he said, "I know what silence looks like when it's hiding something.
I know what fear looks like dressed in glamour. I believe Oprah. And I believe there's more coming."
Gayle King, Oprah's best friend and longtime confidant, appeared visibly emotional during her morning segment on CBS.
As footage of the court sketch played, she said, "I won't speak for her. I don't need to. She already did.
But let me say this, there is no woman more careful, more precise, and more truthful than the one I've shared a lifetime with."
The response was immediate, and not just from celebrities.
Corporate sponsors began quietly distancing themselves from Diddy's current business ventures. A fashion label announced a temporary suspension of collaboration pending the outcome of the case. A major beverage company scrubbed his name from their influencer partner page. Streaming platforms pulled promotional banners for past documentaries and specials featuring him. The shift wasn't confined to media.
It spilled into the streets.
In New York City, dozens of protesters gathered outside Bad Boy Entertainment's headquarters, holding handwritten signs that read, "No more industry secrets and believe her."
Some wore shirts with Oprah's sketched courtroom image.
The protest began as a handful of activists and grew to over 300 by nightfall.
Police issued crowd control orders.
Drone footage from above captured chants of "You can't bury the truth."
Meanwhile, news outlets aired non-stop coverage.
CNN ran a special titled The Oprah Effect, When Icons Testify, where legal analysts dissected not just the content of her testimony, but the timing, tone, and possible legal ripple effects. On MSNBC, a guest commentator said, "This is no longer about just one man's guilt or innocence. This is about the silence that power buys, and the moment someone says enough." Even Saturday Night Live, despite its live broadcast still being a day away, released a teaser skit mocking the courtroom's tense atmosphere. Only this time, the tone was more reverent than satirical.
And the reactions weren't just in support.
Diddy's team scrambled to respond. In a late-night tweet, his official account released a statement that read, "We caution against trial by media. Allegations, no matter how dramatic, are not convictions. We look forward to presenting our full case." But the damage was already done. Every reply to the tweet was flooded with links to the audio clip, Oprah's court sketches, or one-word responses. Too late. The cultural shift was palpable. Even high-profile figures who had remained neutral or loyal began hedging. A rapper who had once called Diddy untouchable tweeted, "Used to look up to you.
Not anymore."
Another artist deleted multiple Instagram posts featuring past collaborations. Behind the scenes, media companies began quietly preparing for more fallout. PR teams rushed to draft statements in case their stars were next to be named. Agents warned clients to expect subpoenas. An independent journalist started investigating NDAs, party guest lists, and shell companies tied to the now infamous 2015 Hamptons retreat. Online, Reddit threads titled "Who Else Was There?" exploded in popularity. Alleged whistleblowers popped up in comment sections, offering half-anonymous confirmations that corroborated pieces of Oprah's story. Screenshots, blurry photos, cryptic flight logs, they began to paint a picture that was no longer just hearsay.
But the most jarring moment came at midnight.
A previously unverified Twitter account posted a video. The speaker remained anonymous, voice altered. They claimed to be one of the unnamed guests at the 2015 event. The video was shaky, filmed in the dark.
"I saw her leave that night. Oprah. She looked scared."
Not like media scared.
Like she saw something.
"I didn't say anything because I was afraid to. But if she's talking, maybe it's time."
Within hours, it had 20 million views.
Inside her Montecito estate, Oprah declined all interview requests. She spent the evening, reportedly, surrounded by close friends.
No press conferences. No celebratory posts. She had done what she came to do.
The world, however, wasn't finished with it. In homes, offices, and studios across the country, a question was echoing louder by the hour. If Oprah Winfrey, arguably the most powerful woman in media, had stayed quiet for so long, how many others were still silent?
And more urgently, how many of them were finally ready to speak?
By Monday morning, the landscape had changed completely. What began as a high-profile federal case against Sean Diddy Combs had spiraled into a full-blown reckoning,
one that now reached far beyond the courtroom. Oprah Winfrey's testimony had set a precedent not just in tone, but in consequence. And now, the fallout had begun in earnest. At 6:15 a.m., the FBI executed a sealed warrant at a gated property in Malibu tied to one of Diddy's holding companies. The scene was caught on aerial drone footage and broadcast live within the hour. Armed agents swarmed the estate, emerging with laptops, file boxes, and several encrypted mobile devices. A single line from the Department of Justice press release shook the entertainment world. In light of new sworn testimony, we are reopening 2 previously suspended cases related to unlawful surveillance and coercive conduct between 2014 and 2018. The implication was clear. Oprah's statements had triggered not just emotional tremors, but legal earthquakes. While federal agents worked, media networks scrambled. The New York Times ran with the headline, "Oprah's testimony reawakens suspended investigations." The Washington Post followed with, "Witness, whistleblower, icon, Winfrey's stand shifts national conversation." Even tabloids, usually focused on drama over detail, showed restraint. People magazine simply wrote, "She spoke." They listened. Inside the courtroom, things remained tense but quiet. No new testimony was scheduled for the day, but attorneys for both sides were summoned for a closed-door conference with Judge Moreno. Insiders speculated it involved scheduling adjustments in light of the expanding investigation and possible additional witnesses. Word leaked mid-morning that 2 more subpoenas had been issued, both to previously unnamed figures linked to the 2015 Hamptons event. One source claimed these individuals had already retained separate counsel and were strongly considering cooperation. Meanwhile, Diddy's defense team scrambled to regain narrative control. That afternoon, lead counsel Marcus Kendrick filed an intent to sue for defamation against OWN and Oprah personally. The statement was scathing. "Our client has been subjected to a coordinated media attack rooted in dramatic storytelling, not legal truth. We are reviewing all available legal avenues to hold Ms. Winfrey and her affiliates accountable for reputational harm." But the public wasn't buying it. In fact, Diddy's own inner circle appeared to be fracturing. A longtime associate posted then deleted a message reading, "Be careful who you protect. The silence ain't worth the sentence." Others distanced themselves entirely. A former protégé publicly cut ties. Several companies removed Diddy from brand ambassador lists and board seats. One fashion label announced a full contract termination pending litigation outcome. Back in Chicago, Oprah remained silent, but her actions spoke volumes. That evening, she was photographed leaving a small community center on the South Side where she had once funded after-school programs. No cameras. No entourage. Just a moment of return. Those who saw her said she looked tired, but peaceful. A local pastor was quoted saying, "She came home to pray. And to prepare." Privately, her legal team issued a statement saying Oprah had no intention to countersue, but would vigorously defend any baseless legal action brought against her. They referred to Diddy's intent to sue as a last gasp of desperation. Elsewhere, things continued to unravel for Combs. At 9:43 p.m., CNN broke the news that a second federal probe was now being reopened, this one concerning financial irregularities and offshore accounts linked to events named in Oprah's testimony. One investigator told a reporter off the record, "It's the kind of pattern we've seen before, complicated money trails designed to keep people quiet." What Ms. Winfrey said in court lined up with timelines we thought were dead ends. By midnight, the hashtag #JusticeWatch2025 had replaced #Oprah Testifies. It was no longer about one person. It was a movement. Petitions surfaced demanding legislation around NDAs and coercion in high-powered industries. Several senators publicly supported opening hearings on celebrity legal privilege and systemic silencing. Talk show hosts debated whether Oprah's decision to testify could lead to a new era of accountability in entertainment, and beyond. But even as the media roared, Oprah remained quiet. She issued one final statement, short, steady, and unshakable. "I testified because I was asked. I told the truth because I owed it. What happens next is not about me, it's about what we all allow to remain hidden." The message was shared across all major networks and was reposted by celebrities, activists, and survivors alike. One anonymous commenter summed it up perfectly. "She didn't just take the stand. She took the weight of every silence we've ever carried." And the silence? It was breaking everywhere. At the next court session, Judge Moreno confirmed that more high-profile testimonies were expected in the coming weeks. She expanded the trial schedule to accommodate newly submitted evidence and instructed jurors to expect ongoing disclosures.
As for Diddy, his empire, once sprawling, bulletproof, and glorified, was now in question. His legal team was shrinking, his public relations arm in disarray. And the question on everyone's mind was no longer did he do it. It was, who else knew? The trial would continue.
More witnesses would take the stand. More secrets would surface. But one thing was now certain.
Oprah Winfrey had done what few in her position ever dared. She risked legacy, reputation, and empire not for spectacle, but for truth. And in doing so, she didn't just shake Hollywood. She changed it,